Welcome to the deep dive. So I want you to imagine waking up tomorrow morning and you can't move.
Oh, wow. Like literally paralyzed.
Literally, you haven't been in an accident. You aren't sick in the traditional sense, You're just a highly successful, intensely busy professional who has suddenly suffered a total system crash.
Right. And we're not talking about your laptop here.
No, I mean you. Your body. It feels like you've been hit by, I don't know, a gravitational wave. Your sense of balance is completely gone. The room is spinning at a terrifying speed, and every ounce of strength just drains out of your bones.
That sounds absolutely terrifying. Like being deflated.
Exactly like that. Deflated like a flat tire.
It's the ultimate biological forced shutdown, right? A moment where the machinery of your body simply refuses to run the software of your life for one more second.
Yeah, and that is a true story. It's the vivid, terrifying opening anecdote from the source material we are exploring today.
Which is such a crazy way to start a text on system architecture.
Right. But the author, who was a successful network manager, was dragged to a hospital bed where he lay completely paralyzed for 4 days. And out of that terrifying forced shutdown, he developed this incredibly unique philosophy.
And that philosophy is what we're digging into today.
Exactly. Our mission today is to explore his creation, which he calls the GIDAF Framework. GIDAF. That stands for Global Insights for Designing Advanced Fronts, created by a thinker known as Global Gideon.
And it's such a wild mix of concepts. He takes rigid, enterprise-level IT architecture principles
Yeah.
and just like blends them with deeply personal development concepts, life cycles, and even some pretty intense spiritual metaphors.
Yeah, it's a highly unusual synthesis. And to be clear right up front, the author heavily utilizes religious and biblical metaphors, but he uses them structurally.
Right, and we're going to examine those impartially today, just looking at them purely as the architectural language he uses to describe how human beings can achieve massive system upgrades.
Yeah, we're just looking at the framework. So whether you are listening right now trying to prep for a massive career leap, looking to optimize your daily routine, or just desperately trying to prevent your own system from burning out,
Which so many of us are.
treating your life with the precision of a high-level software architect is a radical shift in perspective. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with that hospital bed.
Because that's the genesis of the whole thing.
Exactly, because as he lay there, unable to move, he had a realization about why he crashed. He realized he was running an obsolete operating system in his life.
And the critical flaw in that operating system is that he was avoiding the zeros.
Yes, the zeros,
Hmm.
which is his concept of chapter 0.
The power of zero is such a fascinating paradox. I mean, in computer science, everything is built on binary logic, right?
Mm.
Zeros and ones.
Mm-hmm.
The entire digital world functions because of the interplay between those two states. But as human beings, we have this visceral, deeply ingrained aversion to the concept of zero.
Wait, hold on. I mean, if I hit 0, my immediate instinct is to panic and fix it. Like, I don't want to sit around and redesign my system.
Right, because we are conditioned from childhood to view zero as a catastrophic void.
Yeah, a 0 on a math test means you failed the class. A 0 in your bank account means you can't pay rent. Why on earth would he embrace staying in that state?
What's fascinating here is how the author completely reframes the mathematical function of zero. Think about how numbers actually work.
Okay.
A 1 by itself is just a single unit. It has very little power. But if you place a 0 next to it, it becomes 10.
Oh, right.
Add 6 zeros, it becomes a million. The 0 doesn't represent emptiness, it represents magnitude.
That's a huge shift in perspective.
Theory is, it is the placement of the 0 that dictates the ultimate value to the 1. So he realized that in human development, you cannot achieve a high-value 1, meaning massive success or fulfillment, without experiencing the zeros.
The downtime.
Exactly. Those zeros are the periods of forced pause, the painful setbacks, or the moments you get knocked down to absolute ground zero.
It makes me think of like a smartphone that has been acting glitchy for weeks. It keeps prompting you to install a critical update, but you keep hitting remind me later because you are in the middle of a dozen tasks.
Oh yeah, we've all done that.
And eventually the phone stops asking. It just freezes, goes black, and forces a maintenance window whether you like it or not.
That is precisely the mechanic at play in his hospital room. On the 4th day of paralysis, he heard a quiet internal voice simply say, "I catch you."
I catch you. Wow.
Yeah. He realized this terrifying knockdown wasn't a punishment for working too hard. It was an essential recalibration.
Right, shifting him out of the grind.
He describes it as a necessary shift from the threshing floor to the trending clouds.
the threshing floor, meaning where you are just grinding away, right? Separating wheat from chaff through sheer brute force.
Exactly. Hitting zero forces a transition away from that mindless, effort-driven busyness. It forces intentional surrender. Because if you never hit zero, you never have the downtime required to design a better system.
But a shutdown is only temporary. I mean, eventually you have to reboot. How do you rebuild the system once you've hit bottom so that it doesn't just crash again the next time you get busy?
You need a structural blueprint.
And this is the origin of his GIDAF methodology, which he adapted from a very famous IT framework called TOGAF.
Right. For those unfamiliar, TOGAF stands for the Open Group Architecture Forum. It utilizes something called the Architecture Development Method, or ADM.
Which is huge in the corporate world.
Massive. In the enterprise IT world, TOGAF is a very rigid, highly respected framework used to build and maintain massive, complex technology systems. It ensures that every server, every piece of software, and every data flow aligns perfectly with the overarching goals of a corporation.
But the author recognized that TOGAF is brilliant for optimizing servers and routers, but humans require a different architecture.
We aren't servers.
Right. We need GIDAF, which is designed to optimize people and processes. He vividly describes GIDAF as an inside-out electrolyte for life.
Which is a very deliberate metaphor. Think about what an electrolyte does in the human body.
It rehydrates you.
Yeah, but it doesn't just wash over your skin. It penetrates the cells, restoring electrical balance and hydration from the deepest internal level outward.
Okay. Right.
GIDAF is meant to do that for your life structure, replenishing your foundational energy rather than just applying, an external shell of productivity hacks.
And the story of how he learned to apply this foundational energy is incredibly telling. He was looking for a way forward, so he sought out two highly respected mentors.
Elder Frank Chixie and Coach Ogbo.
Right. He visited them separately, fully expecting them to do what mentors in movies do, like lay hands on him, offer some profound mystical wisdom, or just magically download the secrets of success directly into his brain.
He was basically walking into their offices looking for a quick software patch to fix a hardware problem.
Exactly. Here's where it gets really interesting. Independently of one another, both of these mentors gave him the exact same agonizing homework assignment.
They didn't give him a quick fix at all.
No. They handed him a blank page and told him to go home and write a detailed, comprehensive 10-year life plan. They basically handed him a coding manual and told him to write his own operating system from scratch.
Because a true mentor understands the physics of learning. It is a complete waste of time to pour high-level knowledge into an unprepared vessel.
You have to do the work.
Yeah, you cannot outsource your own life's architecture to a coach, a boss, or a self-help book.
Well,
The author refers to this foundational blueprint as the self-vision.
the self-vision.
Right. Before you can apply any complex framework or pursue any goal, you have to define the core architecture of who you are and where you are going over the next decade.
So if you were listening to this on your commute or while walking the dog, ask yourself, do you actually have a 10-year architecture mapped out?
Most people don't.
Right. Or are you just running on the default settings that your industry, your family, or your current boss handed to you? Because running on default means you are completely vulnerable to whatever inefficient loops the world throws your way.
Without that internal code, you are just a peripheral device reacting to someone else's mainframe.
I love that analogy. Okay, let's assume you do the agonizing homework. You sit down, you embrace the zero, and you write out that 10-year architectural blueprint.
The problem is a blueprint is completely useless if it just sits in a folder on your hard drive.
Exactly. Planning isn't doing. The graveyard of personal development is full of perfect blueprints. So how does the author suggest we actually force ourselves to execute this code?
This moves us from the theoretical into what he calls the go vision.
The go vision.
Yeah, it's strictly about execution, and it heavily acknowledges the physics of starting. He introduces the concept of inertia energy.
Like getting a plane off the ground.
Precisely. Consider the sheer volume of highly combustible fuel a heavy airplane requires just to leave the runway. The energy expenditure required to break inertia and simply get off the ground is astronomical compared to the minimal energy needed to cruise at 30,000 feet.
So to manage that massive energy requirement, he categorizes the types of steps you can take.
Right, breaking it down.
You have giant steps, which are those massive, risky structural changes like quitting a job or moving across the country.
Which take a ton of inertia energy.
Yes. Then you have mini steps, which are the daily actions that build steady momentum. But the category that changes the game entirely is what he calls micro steps.
Microsteps are such a brilliant workaround for the fear of starting because they are essentially internal mental rehearsals.
Like visualizing the action.
Yeah, picture an Olympic high jumper. Long before they even twitch a muscle to run toward the bar, you see them standing completely still. Their eyes are closed, their breathing is regulated, and you can see them physically leaning into the imaginary curves of the run-up.
They're running the program in their head.
Exactly. They're compiling and running the code in their mind, ensuring there are no bugs before they deploy it to their physical body.
And that mental deployment lowers the barrier to entry. And to illustrate taking action with whatever resources you have on hand, the author shares a remarkably charming story from his childhood.
Oh, the Washington and Willington story.
Yes. So he and his close friend wanted grand, important-sounding names to project success. His friend chose the name Washington, and it fit him perfectly.
It matched his hardware.
Right. But the author chose Willington, and he quickly realized it felt like counterfeit software. It wouldn't run properly on his hardware. He eventually dropped it and embraced his authentic name, Gideon.
Because you cannot execute a powerful Go vision while running a counterfeit identity. The system will always reject it.
But the real lesson from that friendship is something they called the conquer mixture.
This is such a great practical example.
It really is. They were both poor students, desperately trying to maximize their study time. Cooking a proper meal required multiple sequential steps: boiling the water, prepping the ingredients, adding things at precise times.
And they couldn't afford that luxury at the time.
No, so instead of sequential cooking, they would throw dry rice, cold water, and whatever random spices they had into a single pot at the exact same time. They'd put it on the fire and immediately go back to their books.
It's a perfect mechanism for breaking inertia. The conquer mixture bypasses the perfectionism of sequential planning.
They didn't wait.
Exactly.
Right.
They didn't wait for the water to boil to add the rice. They didn't wait for the perfect ingredients or a modern kitchen. They utilized parallel processing, putting everything into the system at once to force an output.
I constantly find myself falling into that sequential trap, though. I mean, I want the weather to be perfect, my inbox to be at 0, and all the traffic lights to be green before I take a major step.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, waiting for perfect weather is one of the two great enemies of the Go vision.
What does he mean by perfect weather exactly?
It represents external distraction. In a chemistry laboratory, scientists refer to standard temperature and pressure perfect controlled conditions.
Which never exist outside the lab.
Right. In real life, standard temperature and pressure never exist. If you wait for the economy to stabilize or your confidence to be absolute, you will never launch. But the second enemy is internal, and it's far more insidious.
Biological resistance. Our own bodies fighting against our goals.
Precisely. Human biology is wired for energy conservation. Your brain actively prefers the known comfort of the couch to the unknown variables of the treadmill.
It wants to save fuel.
Always. So the Go vision requires you to consciously override your own biological default settings. You have to generate enough artificial friction through those micro and mini steps to overpower your body's natural craving for stasis.
Okay, let's say you've successfully overridden those defaults. You've broken inertia, you've launched the program, and you are taking massive action.
You're in motion.
Right. But how do you measure if you are actually moving toward your 10-year architecture, or if you're just exhausted on a hamster wheel? He addresses this by drawing a very sharp, uncomfortable line between what he calls ungathered diligence and channeled diligence in his work vision.
This is such a sharp critique of modern hustle culture.
It really hits home.
Ungathered diligence is the intoxicating pride of simply being busy. It is the colleague who loudly complains about staying at the office until midnight every night, frantically answering emails, but producing absolutely no measurable, needle-moving results.
Because it feels like work.
Yeah, we fall into ungathered diligence because measuring effort is easy and safe. Measuring true output is vulnerable because your output might fail. Channeled diligence, conversely, is ruthlessly outcome-based. It is effort funneled through a very specific, strategic filter.
To explain how to achieve that channel diligence, he tells an incredible story about a seemingly trivial interaction the smiling hook anecdote.
I love this story.
So he was standing in a grueling, physically exhausting queue to get a new GSM phone line in Nigeria. The environment is tense. Everyone in line is frustrated, complaining, and snapping at the telecom worker behind the desk, who looks completely drained.
Just a toxic atmosphere.
Totally. But when the author finally gets to the front of the line, instead of venting his own valid frustration, he pauses, offers a genuine smile, and simply asks her, "Have you eaten today?"
It is a profound, pattern-breaking moment of human empathy.
And the effect was instantaneous. She physically relaxes, smiles back, and then reaches into what she calls her bottom drawer.
The secret stash.
Exactly. Instead of handing him a standard random phone number, she gives him a highly coveted, easy-to-remember VIP number that she had been saving. So what does this all mean? Is the author suggesting that being polite is just a nice thing to do? Or is he saying that empathy is an actual, measurable productivity metric?
Oh, it is absolutely a productivity metric. When he moves into the manager vision, he introduces the concept of five-star managers.
Okay.
These are leaders who have successfully transitioned their teams from an effort-driven culture of ungathered diligence to an output-driven culture of channeled diligence.
By using empathy.
Yes, his core argument is that you cannot drive sustained output without genuine human connection. A manager who treats employees like lines of code, rather than human beings, is operating a high-performance vehicle while simultaneously slamming on the handbrakes.
It's just grinding the gears.
Exactly. The engine will rev, a massive amount of effort will be expended, but the internal friction will eventually tear the transmission apart.
You have to release the handbrake of human friction to let the engine perform.
He actually compares this leadership style to Einstein's equations in physics.
In what way?
Well, the most profound paradigm-shifting truths in the universe are often remarkably simple equations, right? True management architecture isn't about creating convoluted, 100-step approval processes that make everyone look incredibly busy.
Right.
It is about Einstein-level simplicity, cutting through the noise, recognizing the humanity of the person operating the machine, and aligning their energy toward a channeled outcome.
Okay, so we have our blueprint, we've broken inertia, and we've channeled our diligence by releasing the handbrakes. The system is humming.
But there's a new danger now.
The danger is human nature. Once we achieve high output and things feel easy, we are tempted to coast. We put the system on autopilot. How does the GIDAF framework prevent our freshly optimized lives from immediately becoming obsolete again?
By instituting the continuous improvement vision. To explain this, he borrows a fundamental programming concept called the UNTIL loop.
UNTL, spelled UNTIL.
Right. In coding, an UNTIL loop dictates that a specific action will continue to execute repeatedly until a defined condition is met.
Okay.
He applies this logic to the psychology of success. He observes that wealthy, highly successful individuals operate on a continuous UNTIL loop. They hit a massive milestone and immediately recalibrate to look for the next peak.
And what about people who don't operate that way?
He says individuals with a poverty mindset hit a milestone, throw a massive party, and go to sleep. They break the loop.
So to keep the loop running, you have to constantly audit your own success. And he illustrates this audit process with a brilliant, highly relatable story about a mosquito net.
This is such a perfect analogy for internal auditing.
It really is.
Yeah.
So he lived in an area prone to malaria, so he hired a professional carpenter to install protective nets over his windows. The carpenter arrives, securely nails the nets to the window frames from the outside of the house, and leaves.
Job done. Right.
You'd think, but that night, the mosquitoes keep getting in.
Because an external fix rarely addresses the underlying vulnerability. The carpenter left microscopic crevices between the wall and the wood on the inside of the room.
Right. The author realized he couldn't just trust the external patch. He had to personally revalidate the structural integrity. He went and bought foam, got up to the window, and meticulously sealed the loopholes from the inside.
Taking personal ownership of the system.
Exactly. The lesson is that you cannot apply a new productivity hack or a new job title to the outside of your life and assume your system is secure. You have to continuously audit your internal vulnerabilities.
And this internal auditing is where he leans most heavily into his biblical metaphors, presenting them as the ultimate examples of hardware and software upgrades.
Like turning water to wine.
Yes, or the day of Pentecost. And he references these historical or scriptural moments not as religious dogma, but as architectural models.
Models of a system receiving a completely new operating system.
Exactly. It's a transcendent operating system. It is his way of describing how human beings can expand beyond their hardwired limits to attain an elastic cloud-like capacity. where your internal software is continuously refreshed by a source of energy greater than your own biology.
But wait, the idea of constantly upgrading, constantly patching, constantly finding the next peak, doesn't that inherently lead to the exact burnout we are trying to avoid?
It's a valid concern.
He even mentions his own favorite music CDs in the text. He notes that the tracks he cherishes the most, the ones he plays on repeat, are always the first ones to develop faults and get scratched. If we apply continuous improvement to a single area of our lives relentlessly, don't we run the risk of ruining the things we love by overplaying them?
This raises an important question about the critical difference between improvement and obsession.
Okay, distinguish those for me.
The author is deeply aware of the CD metaphor. If you play the exact same track, meaning you focus entirely on your career at the expense of everything else, that sector of your life will degrade and scratch.
It wears out.
Right. Continuous improvement in the GIDF framework requires spreading your focus. It means systematically patching your internal software across all domains. Your physical health, your intellectual curiosity, your empathy, your relationship.
So you aren't just overplaying the career track.
Exactly. By diversifying your upgrades, you create a dynamic balance. You seal the internal crevices so that external mosquitoes, the inevitable failures, economic downturns, and distractions of life cannot infiltrate your core architecture.
It's the difference between running one application until the processor melts versus ensuring your entire operating system is quietly downloading the latest security patches in the background.
That's a perfect way to put it.
When you look at it through this lens, treating your life with the precision of an enterprise IT architect isn't about becoming a cold, unfeeling robot. It's actually a deeply humanistic pursuit.
Totally.
It means you stop fearing the zeros in your life, those terrifying moments where you lose a job, fail at a business, or get knocked flat on your back because you understand they're forced maintenance windows.
You need them to upgrade.
Right. It means you stop waiting for perfect weather, and you throw all your ingredients into the conquer mixture to break inertia. It means you seal your own internal loopholes from the inside out, rather than blaming the carpenter. When you take ownership of your code, you alter your entire trajectory.
You evolve from a passive user running pre-installed programs into the master architect of your own future.
But as you embark on that redesign today, we want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought from the author's framework that we haven't touched on yet.
Oh, the vision pains.
Yes. Amidst all this talk of optimization and success, he introduces a concept he calls the gift of vision pains.
Which sounds like a total contradiction. I mean, a pain cannot be a gift.
It really seems that way. But he proposes that every truly great 10-year architectural vision comes with a built-in, unavoidable discomfort.
A bug in the system.
No, that's the thing. A persistent pain or challenge that never quite goes away no matter how much you optimize. But this pain isn't a glitch in your code, it's a feature. He argues that this specific discomfort acts like the heavy rudder of a ship beneath the water. It constantly applies pressure against the current to keep you balanced, humble, and moving in the exact right direction.
That changes how you look at every struggle.
It does. So look at your own life today. What is your current vision pain? What is that one persistent, agonizing challenge or discomfort you've been complaining about for months?
Or even years.
Right. And how might that very pain be the secret internal mechanism that is actually steering your ship toward your ultimate architecture?
That's something to think about.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a hard look at your own operating system, embrace the zeros, and we will catch you next time.